Hello. It is 8:31 on the East Coast, 7:31 where I live. It is time for the sit down with LB. Hello, everyone. It is me, LB, your boy, here with another episode of the Sit Down with LB, exploring the industry, inside the industry. And I am excited about tonight's show. I have two friends of mine who happen to be in positions over young artist programs, but I am happy to be joined by both of them tonight to discuss a very important part of our industry, which is young artist and preparatory programs. Before I get started, I did want to give a quick shout out. Yesterday was an incredibly huge day. It was just an amazing day with so many of my friends. I wrote on Facebook, the Academy Awards, the Music Academy Awards presented so many people with distinctions as Grammy winners, but also my friends who were nominees. So I want to give a shout out to all of them. It's too many people to name. It's really hard, and I wish I could, but I just am really, really proud of the work that all of my friends did, and I'm happy they were recognized. So bravo, bravi, brave, everything to all of you, and really enjoy it. And so I just want to say that. Inside the industry, discussing young artist programs. And so, again, as I mentioned before, quite excited about tonight. I have two of my friends that we started, in the business as in professional relationships, but now these are people that I call friends and people that I feel like I can talk to. And so I'm happy they decided to come here and have this discussion. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me introduce them right away. It is Dan Novak and Markus Beam. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yes. Well, just quickly, tell us where you're, I know I said your companies. I don't think I said just yet, but tell us where you're calling in from, if you would, and then I'll read your bio so everybody knows who I'm talking to. Why don't you start, Markus?
Sure. I am calling in from San Francisco. I got here. I was virtual for the first part of the year and got to the Bay Area about 2 weeks ago. So I'm calling from San Francisco now.
And Dan?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois, where I've been for many, many, many years.
Oh, not that many.
Oh, well.
Are you trying to tell me yourself, right?
It's been a good long run.
Alex Fletcher says two great guys, and I definitely agree with that.
Oh, thank you.
So I love, love the fact that you guys are here tonight. Let me read your bios. Markus Beam is currently general manager of the San Francisco Opera, where he co-leads both the Adler Fellowship Program and the Maryland Opera Program. Previously, Markus was
Opera Center, Larry.
Opera Program. That's what you sent me.
Oh, you said general manager of San Francisco
Markus Beam is currently general manager of the San Francisco Opera Center, where he co-leads both the Adler Fellowship Program and the Maryland Opera Program. I'm not anointing you just yet, but maybe sometime down the road.
I got a promotion.
Yeah, a promotion. Look
Already.
at that. Previously, Markus was a vice president and artist manager in the vocal division of IMG Artists, managing a roster of both top-level emerging artists and some of opera's most sought-after artists. Markus began his career as a baritone, performing extensively in Europe and the United States, and singing leading roles with Rome's Teatro dell'Opera, Deutsche Oper Berlin, Oper Leipzig, Il Teatro Massimo di Palermo, Santa Fe, and others. A graduate of Philadelphia's Academy of Vocal Arts, Beam also holds degrees from the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music and North Carolina School of the Arts, and trained as a young artist at the Maryland Opera Program, Santa Fe Opera, Glimmerglass Opera, and Wolf Trap Opera. Particularly passionate about the development of emerging artists, Markus maintains an active coaching and consulting practice, regularly leading group seminars and one-on-one sessions, helping artists define and clarify personal goals, develop actionable career plans, and fully develop their unique artistry and voices. More information about his coaching offerings can be found at www.markusbeam, that's Markus with a K, beam.com. So that's Markus Beam. Welcome, Markus. And my
Thank
other
you, Larry.
guest,
It's so awesome to...
of course, and I know Mark as well because we worked as performers and as IMG in IMG. So he's no stranger to me. Dan Novak was named director of the Patrick G. and Shirley W. Ryan Opera Center at Lyric Opera of Chicago in April of 2013, having served as a manager since 2000. In 2006, his position with the program was elevated to senior management level when he assumed responsibility for all executive duties and began assisting with artistic decisions. Novak's career at Lyric Opera of Chicago, of which the center is an affiliate, began in 1989. The first decade of his tenure involved positions with the development and ticket departments, most recently the assistant director of development for chapter activities. An Illinois native, Novak is a graduate of Northwestern University, great school, which he earned a degree in music education with distinction. He serves as a member of the advisory board of the Shoshana Foundation, as well as an adjudicator for the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions and other voice competitions. So welcome, gentlemen, both of you, for being here tonight. And
thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you. I just want to give a shout out to some of the people: Alicia Forbes, Kristen O'Keefe, of course, Alex Fletcher, the great Alex Fletcher, Rachel Cooper, Michelle Hassan, Leon Brown. Thank you for always supporting and tuning in. And so we planned, I just want you to see how we coordinated our outfits. I didn't get the memo, and so these guys look so wonderful. I said, I'm going to take off my T-shirt and look more professional like you guys. So yeah, let's jump right in. Thank you, Nina, Katerina. Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. Okay, so let's start with you, Dan. What is a Young Artist Program in your mind?
Well, I suppose in some ways it's changed over all of the years that Young Artist Programs have existed. But I think more than anything, I think what I see it as is it's a real bridge between kind of an academic training and a professional career. So it's providing professional training, and just, it's like a fellowship. It's really gives you an insider look about what the profession really is like.
Markus?
It's a great question. Yeah, I think, to echo what Dan said, it really is a bridge, and I think it's a place for emerging artists to really get whatever they need. So I have to acknowledge my partner, Carrie Ann Matheson, who's the artistic director of the Opera Center and Maryland, and we're very aligned on our vision to provide whatever it is that someone who comes to us needs. So that can be, certainly vocal, musical, language, but also all of the other things that really go into making an artist and helping an artist thrive. So helping people discover their individual voices, what do they have to offer? And outside of musical things, what does somebody need to be successful? So for some people, that might be elements of mental health training. How do you sustain a career in the arts with all of its challenges? So really the place where we hope artists will get whatever they need to thrive and succeed once they leave.
Okay. And with all of these things that you both you gentlemen said that the Young Artist Program is, a simple question: who should apply for a Young Artist Program? Why don't you start, Dan?
Well, so that's also an interesting question because everybody is on their own path. And there might be times when, for a particular person, joining a young artist program might be right. Let's say some right out of undergrad, sometimes right out of grad school. Sometimes it's better for there to be a little bit more time to gain some other experience and a little more training. And then a young artist program might be appropriate. And the thing is too, let's remember there are young artist programs at so many levels, and each one of them offers experience in a kind of a different way, right? You have the summer festivals that are that very focused amount of time that have some very specific experience that they provide, and then there are companies like Marcus's and mine that have programs that are more year round. So it's it can be somebody who is, maybe you'll start off at one that's maybe not full year. That's an experience to kind of gain under your belt and kind of keep building your skill set. And then maybe a next step will be something like San Francisco or Houston or the Met or Chicago, where it's a more year-round program that is just maybe taking things to the next level.
Marcus, want to jump in there?
Yeah, again, I think Dan really summed it up beautifully. I think it depends largely on what young artist program someone's applying for and whether that is potentially a bridge to a larger, more full-time artist program. It certainly would be my hope when somebody finishes the Adler program, which is the full year-round program that we offer, that's usually multiple years, that they would be ready to transition right into a career in the industry.
So here's go ahead, please, Dan.
So I just want to kind of pick up on something Marcus was saying about the individual experience, and I think that it's something that we absolutely focus on too. And in a way, we're fortunate in that the scale of our respective programs is such that it can be very individual attention, and it just points to how everyone's path is individual. There isn't a formula. You do this, and this, and then you have a career. That's not the way it works. It has to just be what's right for you as an individual artist. And you have to kind of identify maybe what would be the steps that make sense for your own development, and then just go on your path.
Yeah, yeah, and taking into account that everybody's on their own path. No one has the same path. People have some people are late bloomers. Some people are really out of the gate and they feel like they're almost the finished product. And everybody just has, as I said before, a different path. When does a person? I know that there isn't, or maybe you can answer this. There is an age limitation, but specifically, if someone is a Wagner singer, they might be a young artist past 30. They might be a young artist really at 35 as their voice develops and goes in that direction. Is age ever a factor that says, I know sometimes they have their cutoff points, but can exceptions be made for someone who is a late bloomer, someone who actually was working? I talk about Morris Robinson. He used to work at 3M. He used to work in corporate America, and he decided late that he was going to pursue the path of being an opera singer. And so when you have someone like that who does something else before they really line themselves up to go and do something else, their age may age them out. But is it possible for someone who's a little bit older to gain entry into, one of the young artist programs? Marcus?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And it seems like this is going to be a theme of this discussion, that there is no one path, right? So, I mean, there are many things that we would take into consideration. Exactly like an example like that. Was the person doing something else? Has someone had ample opportunities that other people may have had? And if not,
Okay.
then that explains where people are in their development potentially. So I think your point about larger voice singers, but just looking at the entirety of somebody's experience and their journey should absolutely factor into the equation when you're considering, candidates for the positions, and that there's not a hard and fast rule. If you're this age by this date, sorry, it doesn't matter the explanation. I don't think that's that makes for taking the best people that you can get into the program and
Dan?
helping.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an age limit or anything like that. And I suppose in some aspects of our field, there are places where maybe an age limit makes sense. But I think in our particular case, and in Marcus's as well, it doesn't. And it is really supposed to be about giving people opportunities when it's the right time for them and for us. So, as you said, Larry, it could be for some people that could be later in life, or maybe they had to have a pause and pick it back up again, and then it's the right time. So right. I'd like to think that, it's just all about what is kind of right for you and how that can be most beneficial to the program and for your own development.
Right. And, even at the business, as, an opera singer, I am an opera singer. If you're a 40-year-old soubrette getting started, it's probably harder. And that's just realistic. And that's not being mean or anything else like that. And I've always said, I never try to stomp on the dreams of someone. If someone's like, I want to have a career, and I'm 39 and, I'm really trying to get going and get started. That's a hard discussion to have, right? And so I'm sure that's something that both of you have to encounter in your work, because the applications and audition programs are open essentially to everyone. I mean, I know that there are requirements, involved. And you mentioned before about what have they done in the past. So in that question, and I would try to ask it very succinctly, you like to see that they've done other things before, especially because your programs are two of the top leading programs, in America, but also internationally. And people is very sought after, both of these programs. So go ahead, Marcus, jump in there.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify when the comment that I made about seeing what somebody's done meant factoring into the equation, maybe if they're a little later start and they haven't had a lot of opportunities, then we see that, and that makes sense, right? Not that lack of experience is a disqualifier. Mm-hmm. It's all, I wish I could give a really well articulated, clear cut answer on what the formula is.
If I gave a better question, it would be easier, but go ahead.
No. But I think also we're talking about looking at the resumes and just that one small aspect of it, but so much of it is instinctual based on what happens in that room, in that audition room. That what happens in the room can certainly overcome something on paper or a gap in experience or all of those things. So, I mean, we can have preconceived notions, which we try not to have based on someone's experience, but in that room, if what we hear moves us in a way that we want to bring the person in and work with them and help them, fill in possible gaps and get the rest of the training that they need to thrive, then the theoretical discussions go out the window. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Dan?
Well, I was just going to say, again, what it boils down to is that, for somebody who has perhaps, really natural instincts, they don't need to have performed, with 10 companies in order to be ready to go on the stage of Lyric. Because it's so natural, they're just kind of ready to go right away out of the gate, maybe. Whereas somebody else who isn't maybe as naturally inclined in that regard might need some more time on stage before they're going to be ready to step on the stage at San Francisco or Lyric Opera. So, again, there isn't really kind of a formula, but it's I would be a little surprised, I have to say, if anyone who joins the Ryan Opera Center hasn't had some experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, there'd have to be some background to be able to do what it is that our program requires someone to do. But what that exact level is malleable.
Yeah. Well, can I just pause here for a minute? Because we have been joined by the incomparable Craig Terry, who's in the chat.
Oh, my goodness.
Craig Terry, we are not worthy. We are
not
worthy.
Not.
But
True.
I love Craig. But, you said, the Young Artist Program is good for a lot of things, right? It's good for a lot of things, and it's something they're very sought after. It's the difference between for a young artist program, a lot of times to go from graduate school to be fully engaged in the profession is hard. Because a lot of times when you're in graduate school, you're not auditioning for things. You may even want a competition or doing something. But in order to be an artist who can sustain themselves, you need several performances that you can begin to bank on and be able to put money away and save and pay for an apartment. So it's very sought after as young artists, these young artist programs for people to get going.
Sure.
Okay. So they're very good for kind of getting them that schwung or that forward motion that really throws them into the career. What do you see beyond that as the valuable tools that a young artist program can provide? Dan?
Well, I mean, I think, listen, I have to just say, so, as you were noting, my background is actually in instrumental music. I was a French horn player.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it, I think, is that, my hat goes off to vocal artists like you both, because there is just a tremendous breadth of skill sets that is required of you as a performer that's different from an instrumentalist. I mean, especially, you have to be able to act, and you have to also know, a lot about other languages in a way that's different from other instrumentalists. So part of it, I feel, is helping everybody continue to gain these skill sets, because there is a lot you have to be really good at. Part of it is also helping you, maybe further solidify just technique, because you want to have a nice long career, and you want to be sure that you're still singing in a very healthy way that's going to help that's going to be sustainable for a long time. And then part of it is just that there's nothing like learning what the job is going to be like in a way that's very safe and very stable. So you're earning a regular salary for almost 12 months of the year, for almost, for about 2 years for us. And you're getting to see how the people at the top of the field do this. What is life like as a performing artist that goes from gig to gig to gig? So it's that on-the-job training that I think is also incredibly valuable, because it kind of gives you, an inside look. It helps you kind of maybe figure out, well, what do I want my career to look like now, knowing what it is that these individuals are going through as I've been talking to them and watching them.
Mm-hmm. Marcus, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I would just add on to all of those great things. The on-the-job training with a trusted team of supporters and people who are invested in your long-term growth in a way that, as professionals just going from job to job, you don't have on the ground with you. Meaning, very practical ways that plays out is a young artist is rehearsing with a, top level conductor and a top level cast, and then checking in with them. How do you feel about this? How do you feel it's going? Okay, this is the feedback. If there's something we need to course correct here, we can do that together. In a way that, once you're out of the nest, so to speak, you don't have that support system with you from job to job. And then certainly the preparation on the front end of that we can provide for them to walk into these situations, if we're talking about on the main stage, fully prepared and in the best way possible, is something that can't be emulated elsewhere outside of a young artist program, I don't think.
Yeah.
At least not without great expense to the artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, the other thing I just was going to add,
yeah,
that, we kind of use the word launch pad for a career. And I think this is the other thing that is, I have frequently said this is kind of a benefit that is maybe the most unsung hero that we might offer. And that is the fact that so many people come through in our situation, and in Marcus's, come through town to see artists, to see productions, and you can, in like the most comfortable setting you can imagine. It's your own home company. It's rooms that you're very familiar with, and you just walk in and you get to sing an audition for these people, multiple times over the course of a regular season. And that is a huge, huge benefit that we are able to offer to our artists.
Right. Yeah, that's a big thing because, of course, Lyric Opera of Chicago and San Francisco Opera, as I mentioned before, are two of the leading opera companies, not only in the states but in the world, where major international artists are there all the time. It's like no show without a major international artist. That's just a part for the course. But let's go back, if we can, really quickly to this idea of resumes. We got an interesting couple comments in the chat. Our good friend Russell Thomas, who's here, who stopped by to say hello. He said the problem is that people aren't getting the auditions because of what isn't on their resume. When we talk about the importance of resumes, oftentimes you have to send your resume before you get an audition. And if you see someone who doesn't have much stuff on their resume, that's not going to get them on the door. And someone else said, agree, resume development is definitely a topic that young artists need to invest in. If you don't get the breaks, if you don't get the roles in your school, if you don't get, if you don't win the competitions, but you have a real talent, you might not be heard because you haven't gotten other opportunities for whatever reason. That's not necessarily say that you won't ever get the chance, but it's hard if you don't get certain opportunities to put yourself in line for a young artist program like your Lyric Opera of Chicago and San Francisco. That could really be the thing that propels you forward, because you're getting that constant voice lesson in a focused environment, coaching, acting, business skills, all the things you really need to really become what you should be. And so it's a hard thing, because you want to know that the person that is auditioning for you is equipped with the things they would need. But if they don't have those things on their resume, how hard is it for these many artists who don't do all the things I mentioned before to get an audition for a young artist program? Dan?
Well, I would say, certainly from our perspective, what we have tried to do is made it almost barrier free to be heard, right? So anybody in the world can apply to the Ryan Opera Center, send us a video, and we're going to listen to it. And that is really the primary kind of first step in the process for us, is let's listen to the video. And if that's a talent that we would like to see further, then we will take things to the next step. We're looking at the resume maybe a little, but it's really about watching the performance. So, and it's free, so we're trying to eliminate any barrier there might be to being heard.
Mm-hmm. Marcus?
Yeah, I would agree. And I would just say again, the resume is potentially part of the discussion, but it's not the whole equation. And similar to Dan, I know that Carrie Ann and I are very passionate about meticulously screening. We haven't done an audition cycle yet, but we're passionate about meticulously screening and hearing everyone who applies. So and certainly as a manager, I was working as a manager for 7 years, and specifically with young artists, that video, or if I'm in front of somebody in the room, what happened there, that's the most important thing. The rest of it, we can figure out and look at and figure out how to supplement and fill in the blanks. But what happens in the room is most important. And luckily now in this virtual world, what happens on video is so very important and affords so many people the opportunity to be heard, not just the people that can be scheduled in an audition time allotment or something like that. So I think we're both, it sounds like, very, very open to those videos, and that's the most important part of it. That's what starts the discussion.
Right. Let me, if I can insert this question, I didn't talk to you guys about this beforehand. When we talk about bias and, of course, when we look at people for whatever reason, a lot of times we understand as artists, before we open our mouth, we're already being judged. The way we walk out on stage, what we're wearing, all these other things are so important to our whole package, right? But orchestra members, oftentimes, they are behind the screen. As someone who's auditioning artists, our visual and communication skills are so crucial to what we do that it's impossible for us to not be judging people from the minute they walk out. You know, the most important thing is the voice, I was told, you know, and if you have this idea that you want to screen them behind the, behind the screen and then just go from there, then everything else is kind of like the gravy beyond it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The most important thing in these auditions should be the voice, right? That someone captivates you, and not the fact that their suit is one size too small, or that maybe they're even singing the wrong repertoire. How important to both of you in leading opera companies is the voice at the center of the focus, where everything else that you want to work on, but you're like, that right there is something that God, or whoever, creator, just sent from on high and put into that body. Speaking just about the raw voice.
It's so central, as you said, Larry. I mean, it's just completely central. Sometimes I get very frustrated that anybody would comment on what someone is wearing, or some of the stuff that to me ultimately makes no difference at all. The thing that, I think all of us, I'm going to say, certainly my RLC colleagues in Craig Terry and Julia Faulkner, when someone walks in the door, we would like to hear what they have to say. And if they're communicative and do so with a voice that makes you sit up and pay attention, those are really the two key factors. What you're wearing or any of the other business is just so not important.
What a person
it's
looks
really
like.
About it just, I hope to God that I certainly aim to not be paying attention to any of that. It's about how you're singing and what you're saying.
Yeah. Marcus, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree fully. I think it's really important. Look, I think I know what you're getting at, Larry, and I know that to pretend like that hasn't been a conversation that has happened. If we're talking about, let's say, a person's size, previously in this industry, would be ignoring what has gone on in the past. But I think it's so important in this particular moment, with body positivity, to acknowledge that any person of any size, height, however you look, can tell a story, and the voice, first and foremost, as you said, to deny that this is a vocal art form, literally by definition,
thank you,
is to the art form's peril, right? That has to be the central focus. I would add to that storytelling, right? We're also in an art form that is about telling a story, and anybody of any size or shape can effectively tell a story.
Yeah. And, I asked that question because as both of you were talking, I thought about my own experience. Even as I was a young artist and trying to get into a young artist program, there were many people who told me that I wouldn't be successful. I remember when I did the Met auditions, and a friend of mine told me that he was at a cocktail party like a week after the Met, and there was an artist manager that was there. I'm not going to mention who it was. An artist manager was like saying, I just saw the Met auditions last week, and there was this little round black tenor who was like this tall, who, when he walked out on stage, I was like, what is he doing there? And this was this was the finals of the Met. What is this guy doing there? And then, I'm not talking about myself, but I sang my heart out. I tried to do what I felt like I was born to do. And he was like, wow, that's a great instrument, but he's probably not going to have a career. Maybe in some of these, off the beaten path companies in Germany or something like that, they said I would have a career. Thankfully, that's not been the case. Again, this idea that the voice is the most important thing. But a lot of people are being told they're losing the confidence. They're not applying for your programs because of sizeism, ageism, what have you. And I don't want to put you guys in difficult positions, but it's just I wanted to have an honest discussion about that, because that is really, really important as we hopefully don't lose the great voices, the next, and I hate saying the next because everybody cuts their own path, but the real next great voice that we could potentially lose because of they're being deterred because of, people are not focusing on the central thing, which is the voice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I don't like that it happens, and I sure hope that I feel like we're doing our best to in no way take that road.
Yeah, Marcus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm glad you're bringing this up, Larry. It's an important conversation among all of the other ones around the barriers that have historically been in this art form that have to be eradicated.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's a really important conversation to have. So I'm glad you're bringing it up. And, to echo Dan, apply to these two programs because that's certainly not something, any of those things that we're disqualifying anyone for. I mean, furthest thing from it. We want to be moved. We want to hear great singing. We want to feel a story being told.
Hmm.
However that comes.
Yes, because I mean, some of the great singers of the past didn't look like the roles, but over time things have changed, and more of the demand has been on the physical. And one of the things I've done, I've always looked at it this way. When I'm trying to think about my career, me losing weight, there have been times that I have been more overweight than I should be. I looked at it as making an investment in my career, like think a thing that could help me because that is an aspect because I know everybody knows about the famous black dress story, at Covent Garden and other things where, that was a phenomenal voice that you want to make sure that person is singing because they have something as an artist to offer. But it hasn't always been the case where the voice was the most important thing. And so for my listeners who are writing in the chat and they're busy saying, that's some of them probably were turned away in various things because of their age or voice or I mean size or all the things why people can be deterred. So let's go to another topic. Because of the age of young artists can range from 20 to 30, there are often different levels of maturity. Okay, how often do you need to remind yourself that it's not a one size fits all approach to training people at different levels of not only vocal development but also maturity and life development? Someone coming from a small city to Chicago for the first time at 21 years old, stinking talented, just amazingly talented, but just hasn't lived life off the farm in Iowa or something like that. That is an aspect that you have to think about as well in the Young Artist Program. Dan, yeah.
It is 100%, and I mean, we kind of keep beating this drum, but I'm going to keep repeating it to say that it's the advantage that we have in that we're small enough in scale with the number of people we have that we can really provide very individual attention. So for some people, moving to Chicago is no big deal. They're used to big city life. They are used to, figuring out public transportation and going to find an apartment and all of the various aspects of living in a place like Chicago or San Francisco. For some people, this is brand new, and so we might have to provide them with some extra support in that regard. You're talking about different maturity levels. Some of it's someone who's really young, maybe they haven't had to interact in a professional way with their senior colleagues, and so maybe it's a conversation about how when you're going to get in front of a world famous conductor, here are some kind of expected social guidelines that you can kind of keep in mind because this is what's going to be expected of you so that you're successful. It all, everyone comes to these programs with their own background, and undoubtedly the variety of experience is just vast. There's so many different things that each person has in their own background that we have to try to address. And what's nice is we certainly encourage our colleagues, for these folks to talk to their colleagues. If you're a first year member, talk to someone who's in their second or third year and feel like, what's it like when you're in a rehearsal or when I'm covering? What's the kind of expected etiquette that you might follow? Or, there are people around you besides Julia, Craig, and me who can try to help you and ask the questions.
Yeah, Marcus.
Yeah, and I think one of the things Dan is getting at is that if we're doing our jobs well, it's our job to figure out what the individuals need, because there is no one cookie cutter approach where if you take these however many classes over the course of your time here, then you're going to be ready for a career. People are coming in with, as Dan said, vastly different needs. Some of them may be how to cope and adjust to life in a big city, as you said, Larry, or you have never been in a high level rehearsal potentially and don't know what rehearsal etiquette is. Don't know anything about managing finances, particularly as that pertains to an artist. All the things that, at least I feel like me and my generation, we all got a really rude awakening when we got that first offer, and you're like, "What? That's so much money!" And then you get to the reality, and it's not even a portion of what you thought it would be. So
Right.
things like that, that we want them to be armed with that information before they encounter it as best we can. Right? We can't calculate everything they're going to experience, but really tailoring it and getting to know what the individual needs of each person are is key, and that's us doing our jobs well.
And also sometimes, go ahead, Dan, please.
Sorry. I was just going to make a comment about maybe one area that it seems to me is pretty universally one that is of need, and that is more language training. I think every single person pretty much that comes into our program needs help with language. So can I just put it out there to the world that as you are, studying and thinking about becoming an opera singer, keep language as a really key component of your study, because, we in America are at such a disadvantage in a way from our European counterparts, because it's just pretty typical that you'd speak at least 2 languages if you live in Europe. We can speak English here and never speak anything else. And it feels like in some ways in school, that's, we had to take language when I was in school. I don't know if that's required now, but at least being close to fluent in one other language is such a kind of big stepping stone to understanding how you have to sing in any other language. But I mean, that is just one particular component that I think we always struggle with wanting to offer more, because it seems to be that's an area that needs attention.
Right. And the practical application of a language just isn't available for us until we get in a setting like the rehearsal room of Lyric Opera Chicago or San Francisco Opera, because you have international colleagues who most of the time they speak English better than us. But if they don't, they speak enough English, and then you need to be able to meet them in the middle. Does that make sense? You need to, if you're at a much better place if you can talk to a conductor who speaks very little English and is fluent in Italian, if you can at least be able to work your way through some of those things. And now, look, as I said before, the practical application of a language is not possible for us, because in America, it's like English only. That's sadly, but go ahead, Marcus, you were going to say something?
No. I was just gonna say, but right now, particularly the Zoom, revolution has shown us that there are native speakers in the countries where they speak the language, and there are native speakers certainly in America who you can get on Zoom and have lessons for really probably a lot less than you think. Of course, different people charge different things, but there are lots of singers, native speakers of foreign languages, who are doing this work now between jobs because there's not much going on performatively. So I think that's something that the young singers and not young singers on the call can do no matter where you are, from anywhere, now that we have Zoom. I think we used to think about it, well, I don't have time to go to the Goethe Institute and take a 6-week course, but there's so much you can do with native speakers to really improve your language skills.
Yes, it's something that for me,
important.
It's so important. I mean, the thing is, I'm not tooting my horn, but it was important for me to have a very, very high level in Italian, because that's primarily what I sing. And knowing which direction you're going in, a lot of people come into this young artist program, they don't know what they're going to be. Some people have a really good idea. They're like, I'm a baby Wagner singer. And you're like, wait a minute, maybe you're not. But, I thought, that's at that level when I got into a young artist program, I was like, I'm going to be primarily Italian. So for me, I think it's really important for me to get to a certain level of Italian. So if a young artist comes to either one of you, they're saying, look, I really want to focus on French chanson. Will you help them to say, I'm going to make sure that we can give you a French teacher who absolutely will equip you. When you leave here, you will be at the very least fluent in French. You have to do some of the work yourself, but we in our, assisting you will give you the resources to make sure you're at that level to achieve the goals that we collectively feel that you can achieve.
Well, we certainly, as long as, whatever the time and resources are that are at our disposal, would do that to the greatest extent possible.
But that's in the scheme of what you think is part of your jobs to help them in that respect. Yes.
100%. And I'll give you an example right now for this first module of language learning that Carrie Ann and I have implemented. We gave everybody, all of the Adlers, pianists and singers, the opportunity to choose the language they wanted to be in. And so we have people in Italian, French, German, and Russian, which meant that then we had to offer 4 languages because those are the language just people wanted to take. And it's to watch them thrive in the lessons and be really excited about what they're studying has been huge. So I absolutely, and I'm sure Dan feels the same way, that we want to give them the opportunity to learn the skills they want to learn.
Yeah. Dan?
But just to add, to say, to everyone that's watching, don't wait till you get to a program to study a language. keep it going on your own, because as you say, Marcus, there are so many very affordable resources, especially now, that are right at hand. So no time like the present. Just dive right in.
Yeah, Christina Bianco says she totally agrees with Marcus. I highly recommend the app italki for anyone looking to learn from native speakers for an affordable price. I'm going to actually do that myself. Let me put that back on the screen. Totally agree with Marcus. italki for anyone looking to learn from native speakers for an affordable price. I'm going to get that app and maybe try to learn some Romanian or something like that. So, great. When people are getting into these young artist programs, it is a very pivotal part of their career. As you mentioned before, I think it was Marcus who said, once they finish your program, you would hope, because these are finishing schools. Back in the day where people had these finishing schools, these are finishing schools where you're like, okay, we're launching you into the world. You don't expect somebody to go from Lyric Opera of Chicago program to another one that is not as highly touted. Everybody has a different development and stuff like that. Someone may change from baritone to tenor, and that's a whole different thing. You got to figure that out. But you want to feel like these people are ready to be finished, and then we launch you. How pivotal do you think, how do you see your job when taking these people at that level of really launching them into the world? Do you consider a tremendous responsibility on yourselves to provide them with the tools they need? Or is it kind of like, where you're in this program, of course I know this, and I'm just setting up the question. You're not left to your own devices, but it's just kind of like, okay, it's really important for you, and we take your development very seriously, that when you're done here, you're going to be ready to go into the real world. Would you talk about that, Marcus?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to make a distinction, because with the Adler program is exactly what you defined and what we were talking about. And then the Marilla program is the summer program from which we choose our Adlers. And so that program, the people who come may be a little younger and would potentially go on to another longer term young artist program like San Francisco or Chicago or the Met or any number of places. So I just want to be clear that where I sit, there's these 2 different programs that we're running that have slightly different, not different aims, but just different people.
They're set up differently. Expectations.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. The structure of the programs are completely different.
Yes. But we
well, I was saying one can be looked at as an experience builder, and the other one can be looked at as a finishing school, if we want to say that. I don't know.
Sure. I think that's accurate. And I think it's accurate to say that they're called Merillini, the people who come to Maryland and graduate or go on from the program, finish it. And there are many Merillini who go on to other young artist programs, but there are certainly many people who participate with Marilla and then very shortly go into a career, and even people who are in a career in a FES contract, for example, and come for the summer to be part of that. But either way, whether it's in the summer experience, we want to give them as best we can a really robust, which we can do that very well, training experience, and give them the tools and the beginning of the tools that will set them up for a career. When we're talking about the Adlers, yeah, exactly like you said, it's our hope that they will go into a career, and we take it extremely seriously and are constantly talking about what is working in the training that we're providing. If somebody, if something doesn't seem like a fit for someone, if a particular class, a particular offering, we want them to be getting what they need. Again, it's not a cookie cutter. If you complete this curriculum as exactly prescribed, that's the checkbox for a career. Those things don't exist. I think that used to be thinking. Kind of previous generations would give the checklist of, if you want a career in this business, do A, B, C, D, and you'll have one. I think, and this leads us down another road, but what that potentially leads to, even if it works, is artists following somebody else's goals. And then people, if they get to the end of that and achieve what was set out for them, go, wait a minute, I didn't even want this.
Right. Or I don't have a career.
I am, I've achieved. Yeah. Or I did it and I don't, right. And I'm not fulfilled. But so we take it, to answer your question, extremely seriously, our role in helping them get the tools that they need to be in the best place to go into a career.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what Marcus was saying, Craig and Joe and I talk about this quite a bit. This is really kind of, in a way, it's collaborative in that, it is absolutely our responsibility to give you, the artist, all of the tools and the experience that you need to be successful. We're part of your development. You are the one who has to take ownership of that process, because it started before us and it goes on after us. So, we will absolutely identify areas of strength and areas that need improvement and try to help address all of those issues. And as I say, build up skills and tools so that you can be successful. But you as the individual have to also bear responsibility for understanding what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you need to spend some time on, and then ultimately kind of taking all of that self-knowledge along with all of the training out the door with you, so that then hopefully you can keep developing. I mean, this is not, when you say it's a finishing school, that's a good description, but it's also it's not the end of the road. I mean, I think the most successful artists are the ones who are constantly aiming to be curious and are continuing development all the way through. So this is a stepping stone that is going to need more nurturing as you leave.
Yeah, and even go ahead, Marcus.
I was just going to say, I'm so glad you brought that really important part into the conversation, Dan, that we're talking a lot about the time that they're with us, but it's all for the goal, as you were saying, that these tools then become your tools so that you can go forward, because we're not always going to be there. I mean, we're going to be there for a finite amount of time. I mean, certainly as resources after you're gone, you can check in with us, but we want to prepare you to take the training you get, and always be making sure that you're filtering it through the lens of, how does this work for me? Or does this work for me, right? Because there may be some information you get as a young artist, or a lot of information that just doesn't align with your values or your artistry. And to have the permission to say, hey, that's really great, but that's not for me. This is how I'm going to have to do it. I think we have to be cognizant of that in service of people going forward and having the tools they need for themselves, and that requires a lack of ego on our parts, that again, it's not some pre-prescribed, this is how you do things, but we let them take what works for them forward.
Dan, you were going to say
And
something else?
I just wanted to add that relative to our sense of responsibility, certainly also is to the fact that the training and the experience we are providing to people is all directly the result of other folks generously providing resources. So we want to make sure that we are utilizing those resources in the best possible way because we've been granted this gift to be able to invest it into these individuals. And so again, that's also to me where the individuals have to remember that and take on that responsibility as well. I'm being given all of this experience because someone else is believing in me and in this program and has invested their resources into it. And so I need to make sure that I'm taking advantage of what that's being provided to me.
Exactly. And you said something about investment. So you look at it as an investment in someone's career. Sometimes you look at stocks and say this is going to be a good stock that's going to perform well, and 2 years or however many months down the road you're like this really fell flat on its face. The same thing may be true with the singer, or something like a penny stock. You're like, I don't know, I'm not really sure. And then that just really takes off and becomes that thing that's the best thing in your portfolio, if you want to talk it that way. And so this idea of, it being and you investing in their careers, you look for a return on your investment. You want to see them succeed. You want them to sing leading roles on San Francisco Opera Stage and Lyric Opera Chicago. So part of you looking at them is saying, okay, we're investing in you, but we want to see the returns on your investment. We want to see that you also want it as much as we want it for you as well. And sometimes you have to push them to get serious about it because the resources that you're provided with to help them in their career, it's not limitless. You want to say, okay, make the most of this opportunity that we're giving you. But a big part of that is ego. And I think Marcus, you mentioned ego before. Ego also, and you can speak to all of this that I'm talking about. When you have some people at that age who are maybe pretty big for their britches, and they're quick to reject everything you have to say. They pretty much know the formula that's going to make them the next Cheryl Milnes or the next whoever, and it's pretty much like, I'm just here because it's a nice paycheck, but I'm really going to do this the way I see fit. Talk about that, having to make sure that you check your ego, like you both said, check your ego at the door, but also to encourage them as well because of you investing in them, how they have to check their egos at the door too.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, Larry, that you say that because I feel as if we, in our positions and the artists in their positions, we're serving kind of, I'm going to say, a higher cause. I mean, This is not about individuals. This is about serving the art form that we all love and we want to see thrive. And so there isn't going to be room in a way for us to work together with someone very well if, for instance, someone has a prescribed notion of, well, this is exactly what it's going to be and what I'm going to do. I would suspect that if someone really has such firm feeling about that in the course of our, part of, as we're getting to know people, because we try to do that as part of the process. So it's not just simply listening to an audition. Part of our process in selecting the artists who become parts of the program is getting to know them a little bit and working with them a little bit. And it's more, it's a more holistic, I guess you could say, approach. And that kind of attitude isn't really going to get you very far, and it might not even get you into the program.
Yeah, Marcus.
I like your example, Larry. I would say if you're ready to right now go be the next Cheryl Milnes, then by all means go be the next Cheryl Milnes because we need you out there doing it. But joking aside, yeah, exactly what Dan was echoing. It requires a checking of ego, and I agree with Dan, a serving of a higher cause. Whether that's singing as I talk to young artists about this a lot, singing as your ministry, or, no spiritual connotation at all, but that you're serving Mozart, when you walk onto that stage in that piece. It's just much more compelling when it's about and something bigger than yourself, whatever that bigger vehicle is. And we have the luck and the good fortune to be able to work with potential Adlers for almost 3 months at Maryland. So similar to what Dan was saying, I mean, there's certainly an energetic fit that if all the signs were pointing to someone not being collaborative or open to that type of relationship for multi-years, then they just wouldn't be a fit. And frankly, we wouldn't be a fit for them either. I mean, it would be just as negative an experience for them to come into a program full-time than it would be for us to have them there.
Can I just add to that too, Marcus? I think everybody, everyone has their own place. And, for some people, it's going to be, I'm going to go through a young artist program, I'm going to have a career. For somebody else, it's going to be, you know what? I've kind of gotten through my schooling and kind of just based on who I am and my own talent and ability, I'm going to be ready to go. I mean, it's not prescribed that you have to do this in order to be successful. And I think, Larry, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but sometimes you'll hear someone who'll say, you know what? I love your talent and I think you're super, interesting artist and you don't need us. You're ready to go. So, we wish you incredibly well. We want big success for you, but it has to be the right fit, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's a need for what we can provide. There's just like a synergy about the whole thing that makes sense. And then you end up where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because even in my training, I ended up going to Seattle, the now defunct Seattle Young Artist Program. But I had, I guess, chances to go to the Met program and also Lyric Opera Chicago. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But when I look at my path now, I know that it was right for me to go the path that I went to. And I believe that the people who told me, not that I was rejected, but they actually told me, go sing or go do this or, try this, because they felt like they couldn't not help me, but they felt like my personal career path trajectory would be better somewhere else. And so even along the way, they said to me, I'm glad you did what I said because it was right. And now you see the result of your career. And so when you talk about being sincere and honest with the people who don't make it to your programs, who you tell, I don't believe you should go sing. I don't think we have anything for you. That doesn't mean that they're not talented. It just means that you seriously, probably sincerely, are looking out for hopefully their best interest for them to have the right career they're supposed to have. Marcus?
Right.
I agree 100%. There's not everybody is suited for it. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. It's just not right for everybody. I can just say anecdotally, I worked with some young singers who were approached by young artist programs and didn't want to do them. And it was absolutely the right move. They would have been miserable in a young artist program for any number of reasons: lifestyle, the city that it was in, the fact that they kind of had senioritis from training programs and just couldn't face the training structure in that way. And I completely, as a manager, supported their decisions. So yeah, I don't really have anything to add except just to restate that it's not always the right fit for everybody, and that there would be instances where we would say we don't feel like it's the right fit for you because the thing you need is experience in big roles. So, go to Europe and do that, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Can I add one other thing?
Sure.
This is a little bit of a off the path here, but just speaking about experience that you can gain on your own that is helpful to you as a performer. I always would just say to anyone who is working on developing a performing career, go see a lot of performances. I mean, in addition to opera, go see some theater, go see some Broadway shows, go see some Shakespeare plays. I think it's hugely informative to be an audience member and to see what you respond to as someone in the audience from someone who's performing. And certainly it should be some opera, but I think it's all of it.
Yeah.
It just is so helpful.
And usually the younger artists, from what I remember at Seattle Opera, I believe that we pretty much had full access to almost anything. Now, some rehearsals may have been closed because maybe the
Right.
diva didn't want, they didn't want the looming young artists who will one day sing that role. They may feel uncomfortable because there are elements of that too. We all know that. And as you talked about the etiquette you should have as a young singer, as an apprentice or whatever, looking on and studying, you also need to understand that you don't want to make someone else's work atmosphere uncomfortable. But you talk about this all-out access that the people get, which is one of the biggest benefits, I think, of the Young Artist Program, being able to go to Zits probes, being able to go to all the rehearsals. Did you talk about that, Marcus?
Absolutely. I mean, it can't be undervalued. I mean, being able to sit and watch Furlanetto do what he does at the beginning of your career, and any number of people that we could name that sing in our respective houses, I just think about, as you asked the question, I'm thinking about how much I learned about performing and etiquette, but commitment by watching my colleagues in rehearsal is it can't be undervalued.
Dan?
And there's just so many opportunities for it. I mean, in the shows that you are in, that's a big component of our program is people being involved in the main stage season. But then if there's shows you're not in, maybe there's as you say, Larry, there's a few rehearsals that are closed, but anything that's in the theater is pretty much open for anyone that can attend, anyone in the company that could attend. So go watch a rehearsal of a Wagner opera if you're a Rossini tenor, but you're, go watch it and see what you can learn from it. And it's just a key thing to take advantage of all of the, benefits that are right in front of you.
But essentially, exactly, taking advantage of everything that's in front of you. Essentially, you want people to come in and be sponges, right? You want them to soak up every
be curious
single
and
thing.
Yes, 100%.
And
and use.
Go ahead.
I was just going
Marcus.
to say, and use the atmosphere as a resource, and that applies to people not in programs. If you're in school, or if you're somewhere, where there's an opera house, find out if you can go to rehearsals. Use what's around you as a resource. And that speaks to being in charge of your own education as much as Dan and I and our colleagues in the opera houses are looking at curriculum issues. That's where you as artists are in charge of your own education and can really take the reins in your own hands and see what's being done.
Right, exactly. And, when I sit there and think of myself sometimes, it turned out now that I'm actually one of the oldest people in the cast. I don't know when that happened, but I go and if anybody knows
you're
me,
a kid, Larry. You're a kid. Come on.
But if anybody knows me, they know that I'm pretty loosey goosey. And one of the things I like to do, because oftentimes young artists are frightened of the main stage artists. They're like, I'm not even. You have that balance between some people that are like really too comfortable and some people that are completely, absolutely frightened. And so what I've always tried to do is let people know that I'm just a regular person who puts my pants on one leg at a time every morning. Some people do it two at a time, but I'm not that guy. It's one leg at a time. I'll put my pants on, and we're just normal people. And so, but this idea. This idea that that we're going to completely, I don't know, or something. I think everybody has a different personality, but
They do. But Larry, the thing is, and you're such a shining example of this. I mean, everybody is looking out for the next generation. I find. I mean,
there you go.
They're so generous with their time and their support of trying to help people who are coming up behind them in time. And I mean, it's just a remarkable thing to see and witness all the time, the amount of support that the senior artists provide to their junior colleagues.
And you
It's a wonderful.
think of it like this. We all want to see this art form survive, thrive,
Amen.
and that's, of course, we need to pay it forward, And
Yep.
both, and I've actually done stuff before when I did it at Lyric Opera for sure, where I've spoken to the young artists and I did a master class and I befriended them to let them know that I'm rooting for them, that I really want them to be successful, because it is really important. I mentioned it before, to pay it forward and to do the things that other people did for you, because people did it for me.
That's
You
right.
know?
Absolutely.
Here's a question for you. Um,
I like that setup.
yeah. So,
I know.
when
Fasten your seatbelt.
when you're picking young artists, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. By that I mean, you don't pick a person that you don't think is perhaps talented enough, and then 2 years later they're on the front of Opera Magazine, or they're on the front of Opera America, or 10 years down the road you're like, oh my gosh, we missed it. Or someone that you're like, I don't really know, and then they come into your program and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that in you, and the development that they have. So it's not like a formula that you pick them and you know exactly what you're going to get. When you're listening to auditions, you don't know, because some people are horrible auditioners. Some people
Yep.
don't find their right repertoire until they get into a program like this. There's a lot of things that factor into it. But would you talk about sometimes, how do you look at it when you say you miss out on a person? You're like, okay, that one right there I missed out on. Does that ever happen to either one of you?
Oh, well, sure it has. I mean, listen, first of all, this is not a science, right?
Yeah.
It's pure subjective, listening and judging that we're doing. And hopefully by, the time that we've gained some experience, so between Craig and Julia and me, we've listened to enough people over the years that you gain some bit of a skill about identifying potential, which is really kind of what we're all about, right? We are not identifying finished products. That's not, we're not casting in that way. We're identifying talent that needs to be nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
So it's potential. And so, hopefully we have been able, over all of these years, been able to kind of gain some skill in making those judgments, but you can't say that you get it right every time. It's just not feasible. You try to, but yeah, there's certainly been people that, for whatever reason, we didn't take, and poof, off they go. Or sometimes there's been folks that have come to the program that did well, but didn't really super thrive. I mean, we weren't sure kind of how things might go, and then all of a sudden they leave and then just skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some of that's just, some of it's luck, some of it's
Timing,
individual initiative and timing. Yeah, I mean, listen, we all try to just do the very best that we can. We try to make the best judgments that we can. We try to provide the best experience that we can. And sometimes you have to just let the chips fall where they may, and things happen that are not in your control.
Mm-hmm. Marcus?
Yeah, I have a colleague who said, thank God this is a subjective industry, or else as managers or as young artist programs, we'd all be fighting over the same 5 singers.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else would, right? So, yeah, so I definitely, being new to this position, I can't speak to passing on someone for Merrill or the Adler and then regretting it, because I haven't been in that specific position yet, though, if history teaches us anything, I'm sure it will come up. But as a manager, it certainly did. There were, a young artist here or there that I passed on that then, like Dan was saying, something clicked in the development, and then it was just boom and skyrocket. And, you just kind of go, well, missed that one. But luckily somebody else did it. Luckily for them and for the industry.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a science. We don't have a crystal ball. Like Dan was saying, we make the best choices that we can, with years of informed, hopefully, ears and scouting ability. But we can't always get it right. And there's actually, as bittersweet as some of those examples are, nothing makes me happier than to see someone thrive
Successful.
Oh,
Yeah.
and be
absolutely.
successful in that way. So it's like, oh, hey, I missed out on it, but good on them for doing it.
Nina Katerina asks, what do you base your judgments on? And so I'm saying, to add on to that, a lot of times when you're hearing auditions, sometimes, and it's from everyone, it differs from, people person to person. Sometimes you're listening to potential rather than perfection. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can hear something in that voice and you're like, that is a baby, Verdi soprano who's very, 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 very rough. But we have Julia Faulkner here. We have Craig Terry. We have Carrie Ann Matheson. We have the people. If that person can really apply themselves for what we hear or what I believe my trained ears hear, they didn't do the best in the audition, but that is a baby Louisa Miller. That is a baby Abigail. That is a baby. Would you talk about sometimes what are you basing your decision on? It's an array of things, I'm sure, but sometimes it's potential rather than perfection, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think in a way, Larry, it is kind of this combination of talent and potential.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the reason that we are selecting people for the program is because there's talent to be nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's certainly listening for, very good, solid, basic vocal material and a communicative ability. I mean, a performing ability of some level. But then there's also that, well, let's say there's the X factor, which is just someone that just grabs your attention vocally as a performer. They have something to say and you are getting the message. And then there's all of those things you can see that might be down the road for that person that you want to say, hey, this is super exciting and we want to help carry this along.
Mm-hmm. Marcus?
Yeah, I agree, and I think a lot of it is instinctual. So there's the potential factor, which for a young artist program is a big part of the conversation, more so than when you're singing for a manager, for example, and that criteria is are they ready to go and be marketed to opera houses currently?
Mm-hmm.
So potential is huge. But I think there are people that I am moved by for different reasons. So for one singer, it might be sheer vocal beauty because that's the thing that they have going for them, and other aspects of the artistry can be encouraged and nurtured and cultivated. And for another person, it may be that they're the most compelling storyteller, but there are the voice and there are some vocal issues that need to be sorted out. So that's where the possibility for growth is going to be. And I feel like sometimes people want a formula. It would be helpful to have, these are exactly the things. But I just think it would be disingenuous to say that exists. It really is person to person. Now, that said, there is a bar of, like with all classical pursuits, there is a technical bar that one needs to be at.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing for ballet. You can want to be a ballerina with all your heart, but if you don't have the basic technique to execute the moves, so certainly those are the things that we're making sure somebody has. Are their language skills at a level that after being in the program
Can be developed.
they'll be where they need to be? Is their technique at a place that they don't need 5 to 10 years of intensive vocal study just to be able to make it through a role? Obviously, those are things that would make it not possible for us to look at somebody. But beyond that, it really is individual. And sorry, maybe this takes us down a road or is a little bit of an off ramp, but I think that's what's so important about young singers getting clear about what they have to offer,
Mm-hmm.
what is unique about their
Mm-hmm.
artistry. There can very much be, particularly in the American model, I think, getting stuck in this place of I have to do everything well. I have to have every style of aria. I have to have every I have to be the most versatile performer just for the sake of versatility. And then what we lose is your individual artistry and what you uniquely bring to the table. And sometimes in an audition, when somebody walks in knowing that, and it's instinctual, you feel it, you get it from their singing, that can be the biggest thing that puts them over the edge of being accepted into a program or getting the job or getting management, is a clear understanding of who they are uniquely.
Yes, you mentioned. Go ahead, Dan, please.
I just was going to add, this is a whole nother topic that I don't think we're going to want to delve into, but speaking about what you audition with, the repertoire that you audition with, which again, for a young artist program is going to be probably something a little bit different than what you might think about for like a competition or maybe if you're auditioning for a manager or something like that. But, we being in the business of trying to identify talent and potential, we want to make sure that we're hearing things that speak to you, but that also kind of basically just give us a really good idea of what your ability is.
What you're capable of.
What you're capable of. I would say these should not be times when you're trying to stretch yourself in an audition, right? Singing something that's beyond your current capabilities. Because, listen, we have to develop those, but show us what you can do well right now. And that's our job, is to kind of say, this could be this, and that down the road, but we want to be able to know what you do really well right now.
Exactly. And for me, one of the things, go ahead, Marcus, you can jump in real quickly before.
No, please.
It's funny because
you
jump in. This is to kind of like to dovetail onto what he said, but you go ahead first, please.
Okay. I was just going to say, and to that end, I would really encourage young singers to not should on themselves, I would say, meaning don't get in that loop of, I should sing this aria should work well for me, I should show that I have a high C if you don't have a consistent one. Nobody gets points for doing things mediocrely or because they should. And I say that just to empower people to fully embrace and own what it is that you do well, and show the world. I was going to say show us that, but I think it applies for auditions beyond young artist programs, and show the industry that. That's what people want to see, what you do well.
Yeah, and I was going to say, interestingly enough for me, and I think I said it on the last episode, is that I became more successful when I narrowed in on what it was I thought that I could do well. And a lot of young singers are out here today, and they are being told that they need to have one English, one German, one French, one Italian. And of course, you want to see versatility. But as people who are looking for potential, is it more important, as you mentioned, to hear a singer come in and show you what, if it's that one small thing? I sing Rossini. I don't sing only Rossini, but it's been the thing that's opened doors to sing other things that I'm getting a chance to sing, which I feel like I'm equally capable of singing. But I narrowed it down to be just Rossini and Donizetti, and my list was that. It was very, very slim, but that's what I went in and to do auditions with. As listeners for potential, you would prefer for people to come in and to have a very succinct and clear idea of who they believe there are, even if their list is just very, 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 or molto, or within a little bit of variation, but really dialed into what they believe they are.
Well, yeah, I think that we want to see what you do well with as much variety as you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, having a list of things that are all almost exactly the same in style, that's not helpful in a way, because it's not showing me all that you can conceivably do. So, but does it have to tick off every single box? No, every piece has to be something you sing really well, that means something to you, that you want to say something about. And to the extent that that list can be a variety of languages and a variety of styles, that just helps to showcase the breadth of your skill.
Right. But it's possible
that there's not a prescribed list.
Right. And there's possible that a person could come in and they're like, I have Mozart, and they're a soprano, but they have they have Elvira, they have Pamina, which are, I mean, or, you know what I mean? Something that shows a real departure. If I say I sing Rossini, I could put four different Rossinis that show absolutely different things, that can show legato line and phrasing and singing in a certain tessitura and all these. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can specifically focus on within a limited place to show your variation with that ability, and not that you're just a one trick pony. Does that make sense what I mean? Yeah, what I'm saying. Marcus, you were going to say something?
I was yes. Well, first I'll circle back to what I was going to say, but yeah, I think what Dan said, some variety within that, if it's available to you, like because I know you're singing so well, Larry. If you were doing that audition, let's say, you might also put Una Furtiva on the list, which still is within that focus that you're talking about, but you might not put a 21st century English aria, maybe. You know, who knows? I'm just pulling things out, or Verdi's Otello, let's say. So yeah, I think what Dan said, bringing variety that serves you into the mix is helpful. And the other thing I wanted to circle back to is something Dan brought up about singing pieces that mean something to you. I can't tell you how often I have asked over the years younger singers, what do you like about this piece? And it's just like can stump people. Or the answer can be, well, because my teacher said I needed something with, if I'm a baritone, with a high G. Okay, but that for us on the other side of the table and the audience, because ultimately we're audience members looking to have an experience, that's not a very compelling reason to stand up in front of 4,000 people and sing an aria because it has a high G, right? So just to encourage people to really focus on rep that speaks to you. And if you've decided you're going to sing that aria because it has a high G, find other reasons that it speaks to you as well. Because otherwise we'll sit there for 5 minutes with the feeling that you're singing the aria because of the G at the end.
Or you don't want, or you don't really want to sing it. It's just like, I'm just singing it because it was on my list,
Yeah,
or something like that.
Because it should be there.
Because your requirement said that I need to have an English aria. So here I stand, my constitution's out.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, look, we're almost out of time, guys. Here's my last question for you. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. Amazing. Thank you for being so open and just really lots of nuggets of useful information. For my listeners, people are out there who want to know this. What are your audition no-nos?
Oh boy!
Are there any? Just can we get 2 or 3? I know that's. Am I putting you on the spot? I don't mean to.
A little, but well, I mean, listen. Again, you can
go back and forth too. Go one, then Marcus go one, so that you're not on the spot.
I was just going to say. So, I mean, Larry, I absolutely try in audition mode to be, very open-minded,
impartial,
right? Because this is the whole point. I want to you bring what you want to bring, and I'm here to hear it and to see it, and then we'll go from there. I will say that rarely has an audition been more successful because somebody had a prop in their hand. That's not helped matters.
You know what? That's amazing.
Okay, are we done? We're done.
Come on, Marcus, you got to give us one at least. They're like, I am the photographer.
Totally. I'm gonna take it one step further. Also, potentially equally as rare as being helpful is miming to a very specific degree that prop that you didn't use, right? It rarely, if I can't think of a time it ever worked. Getting really specific.
Can I offer one? Yeah. I remember somebody was singing. Una furtiva lagrima, and they were like, Una furtiva.
Yeah.
Does that immediately turn you like, oh my gosh?
I think what
It's
all
just
this
not
speaks
helping.
to
It's
is,
not helping.
and I think what this speaks to too is finding the authentic truth in the pieces that you're singing and not being, not indicating. Let the story tell the story if you're connected to it. Would take care of all of these things, I think, all three of those examples.
Okay.
Um, but
Well,
yeah, I mean, and then the other big thing about not singing things, I'm just going to say it again, not coming in the room with things well beyond your ability or because you think you should be singing them. That's honestly for me an audition turnoff.
Yeah,
okay.
and this, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say it's not a no-no, by the way, but just to say, right, what someone said to me once was, "Don't show me what you can't do. Show me what you can do."
That's right. That's a great way to say it. And I got to ask this one. This is from my buddy Lemmy Pulliam. Have you ever sat through, and you can be honest, look, nobody's going to judge you. Have you ever sat through an audition where you simply could not hold it together? You were laughing. We're all human. We have
Oh,
situations.
I, I was just recalling one of these the other day when I was with my former colleague John Rolandi, and I had to stand up and leave the room. I
Yeah,
couldn't compose myself.
we are
Well,
human, and there are moments like
We
that.
are human. Yes,
Oh
yes.
gosh, Mark.
all people. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't recall having to leave the room. You know what I would say though, in instances where like the giggles have happened, it's more about some side conversation in the room happening, which, again, we're human, and that's certainly not where we try to be. More of those have been at performances after like a 12-hour day when I'm so slap happy. It's like being in church, right? It's
Exactly.
you start laughing
Yeah.
not because anything's funny, but because it's the time when you absolutely shouldn't be laughing. So those are the times it's come out for me.
I'll just say this really briefly. I remember one time that one of my best friend and I, we were in undergrad, Anderson University. I'll give a shout out to Anderson University, Anderson Ravens, in Anderson, Indiana. Go Ravens. We were judges for the campus wide Olympics, and so my friend Carlton and I, we were the judges for the singing competition. And when I tell you, we were laying on the ground laughing, and I tried my hardest to keep it together, but I just couldn't. I mean, one person came in and it was just, oh my gosh, comedy. And so I don't know, it's, you have to keep it together, and we're all human, and that's the thing I wanted to, this whole series was to show that we are people who are just, we get up in the morning and we check our text messages and we cook omelets and we do everything in all our important jobs in the industry, but to show the human side of what it is we do in our respective jobs. And so, so
I
yeah.
think I think that's so important, Larry, and thank you for. I mean, I've been a fan of the sit down since the beginning, and all the amazing artists you had on, and these recent installments with administrators. I think goes a long way to demystify that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was saying before, like we are huge fans of this art form, and we come to the table wanting to have an experience. We all, from agents to artistic administrators to young artists administrators, we want people to succeed. We want to be sitting behind that table and hear an amazing voice and see a story be told. Like that's, we're rooting for the people standing in the crook of the piano to come in and offer that. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think what you're doing and talking to people, I hope demystifies some of that, so there's not sort of some sort of shroud around that.
Yeah. So
Beautifully said.
yeah, both
Can
of
I just
you.
throw? I'm going to throw in a completely non-segued unplug. I thought we might talk about COVID, and we covered so many things, but I just wanted
Please
to
do.
say a shout out. What's that?
Please do.
Well, I just wanted to. Well, so in terms of that, I mean, I think there are obviously, I mean, specific challenges of this moment, and then new skills that are coming out of it that we
Mhm.
as young artist programs, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say are looking at how to enhance and develop those skills. That media savviness is becoming increasingly important. Videos, were important before this moment, but that's something that's going to stay. And so really helping people in that way. And also honestly, the mental health and how you approach this career. I mean, if this moment has taught us anything, it's that it's potentially fleeting and that things can turn on a dime. And so how you can be mentally and spiritually prepared for that, I think, are all new challenges that we have to offer our participants. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Marilla, to my colleagues at Marilla, because this was before we came on board, they immediately mobilized when the pandemic happened, and to date have given, in addition to the generous grants that all participants can apply for, they've given emergency grants, pandemic-related grants, and have given grants to over 100 past participants, totaling $388,000, I think, in specific emergency grants for the pandemic. So it goes back to the supporters that Dan was talking about before. I mean, we can't do any of the things that we want to do without them. And it's so important, I think, to acknowledge the way that they're stepping up in so many organizations. And
wow, that's amazing. That's
amazing.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
just to say, we are all very, very fortunate to get to do what it is that we do for a living. And that's just another thing to bear in mind. I may just want to also give a big shout out to Craig and Julia and Emma on our team, just great colleagues. And it's just a bunch of great folks to get to work with. I feel very blessed all around.
You're right, Laquita.
I'm laughing at Laquita's comment. I just saw it pop up on the stage.
Laquita.
On the screen.
No, ma'am. Yes, you are. It is too late for you to apply. No, I mean, I'm glad I have both of you on here because obviously very respectable programs that you are leading, both of them, but both of you are very respectable guys. I think really want to see this art form thrive, and that in the next 30 to 50 years, if we're still around, 30 to 50 years, if we're still around, that that it will be going strong, and this is a very pivotal and important part of the trajectory of many careers. Many people have gone on to successful careers having come through Young Artist Program, specifically, the Adler Program and the Ryan Opera Center. So thank you for your work that you're doing. Thank you for your willingness and openness to come here and have this conversation with me tonight. I appreciate it very much. I hope to see you both soon in the future where we don't have to be so socially distant. Maybe I'll give you a big hug, maybe I'll wear a mask or something like that. Many of us are trying to get vaccinated, so I don't know if people have yet, but look, I'll let you know when I'm vaccinated, and then we'll go ahead and give each other hugs and stuff like that. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. My best to both of you. Kisses and hugs to San Francisco and Chicago. Thank you both for being here today.
It's an honor.
Thank you so much, Larry. Good to see you too, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you so
much. You too, Dan. Great to be with you. Bye.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this last in this series, Inside the Industry on the Sit Down with LB. I've had a fun time doing it. The Sit Down with LB is not done. There will be more episodes. I'm thinking about doing one on either the American Diva or maybe something of that, in that direction. But I'm excited to continue this. But thank you all for engaging with me. Thank you for all being here to learn, to listen, to add to the conversation. It means a lot to me. So my best to you. Hugs to you all. I will see you another time. I'll let you know when I'm back online with another episode of the Sit Down with LB. Have a wonderful night. See you soon.